Good morning, everyone. Before we begin, we would just like to take a moment of silence to remember those who lost their lives on this day 19 years ago. Thank you. Good morning and welcome to our info series number 10 webinar, Biking Safely with Children, with our co-host Bob McBride from BikeNewark. Thank you for joining us again. As we're going through the presentation, if you have any questions or comments, please feel free to go ahead and put them in the chat box. And if you haven't already done so, please go ahead and add your name and company just so we know where everybody is joining us from today. So we'll get started. Delaware Commute Solutions, previously known as Rideshare Delaware, and just a quick thing right here. Rideshare Delaware is going through a rebranding, which will be occurring throughout the fall of this year to a new name, Delaware Commute Solutions. So we want to start to get the name out there to get the community aware of Delaware Commute Solutions. Same program, same great program, just a different name. And the reason for this rebranding is because the word rideshare has a different meaning. A lot of people, when they hear rideshare, they think of Uber and Lyft. Well, with Delaware Commute Solutions, we are encouraging all clean commute modes. So keep an eye out for more information about that. But Delaware Commute Solutions is a free commuter service program through DART First State. We work with employers, employees, colleges, and students throughout the state of Delaware to improve air quality and reduce traffic congestion. And we do this by championing all clean commute modes, and that is everything from carpooling, biking, transit, which involves bus and trains, teleworking, walking, compressed work weeks, and also van pooling. So if you're doing any of those, please make sure you join our program, and more information will be at the end of the webinar for that. And just to also let you know, we are dedicated to reducing the number of single occupant vehicles, also known as SOVs, on Delaware's highways. And with that, I want to introduce BikeNewark and Bob McBride, who is the chair. And BikeNewark, they exist to improve bicycling in Newark by working with their partner organizations on 5 critical parameters, which include engineering, education, encouragement, enforcement, and evaluation for the overall benefit of people who bicycle and the city as a whole. So Bob, we welcome you again to our monthly webinar, and I am going to turn the presentation over to you.
Well, thanks very much for having us today. We had done an earlier seminar for Rideshare Delaware about commuting, and we didn't have enough time to talk about commuting with children. So this is grew out of that earlier seminar, and it's not a complete compendium of all the ideas about it, but it's enough to get you started thinking about it. I'm a bike rider of nearly 50 years, and although that makes me a very elder statesman, I spent 10 years of that commuting to work every day, some from Newark to Wilmington, and then some other places where I have worked. So I have some practical knowledge of how to do this, but this presentation is based on a lot of knowledge from our members in BikeNewark and other people that we've talked to in the greater biking community in Delaware. Why do you think we should commute by bike? Well, it's the 3 E's according to the way we look at it. Economy for you, saves you money, energy and environment benefits for all of us, and you set a great example for your children and others in your community. And if we were able to really change the way we drive and use bicycles each week, we could save an awful lot of money. And one of our retired Senator Harris McDowell in Delaware has talked about that. And it's really a huge savings for individuals and the society, because the costs expand. If we don't buy gasoline, We don't have to refine the oil, and if we don't have to refine the oil that isn't drilled, the environment greatly benefits. And one way we say this, when we look at DART buses, they now have bike racks that everybody can use. They're quite easy to use, and actually, I think I saw some statistics recently, they're actually increasing in their use. So imagine the changes we've seen in our transportation costs and the environment due to COVID-19. And imagine how different things might be when we resume some more normal operations. Really benefit a lot from the reduction in the amount of fuel that's required to move us from home to school. You can see in this graphic, the bicycle and rider takes almost no fuel to go at even reasonable speeds, 10, 15 miles an hour. It takes less fuel than walkers and runners, moped riders, even a car with 4 or 5 riders. It's an amazing, huge increase. Much less fuel is expended than we have motorized sources with only one person. So we want to keep the highways as clear as we can of car exhaust as well as vehicles. One of the other problems is that we see huge costs in terms of maintaining cars, and those don't seem to be going down much. The fuel costs have been stable recently, but the cost of maintaining cars are pretty high. And at $300 a year to keep bikes maintained for commuting, it's a pretty good deal. Bike commuting has actually been growing over the years, despite the lower cost of fuel. It's growing by double digits in some places, but it's very small in comparison to the 204 million or so personal vehicles. And believe it or not, growth in bike commuting is not limited to Sunbelt states where it's warm all the time, but sometimes even colder states like Vermont and New York and Massachusetts in the Northeast. Can you commute by bike if you have kids to get to school? That was the question we couldn't answer in our earlier seminar, but it's not an insolvable problem. And here's some ideas that came from BikeNewark bike commuter parents and some other commuting folks. First, safe commuting starts with your bike. You've got to have a safe bike. If it's not safe, you don't really go very far. And the bicycle is almost any safe bike will work. This one is a little hilarity for this, but any safe bike will work, especially if you have a safety checklist that you check your bike regularly. Here's one that we recommend. It's the ABCD model, and it's air, brakes, chain, and drop. So the drop is sort of a test to see if anything falls off or you have any loose parts on your bike. That's an important thing to do regularly. It's surprising. You'd think if you don't use your bike, you don't have to check it. But if you use your bike, you really do have to check it because things do go wrong. An important feature of that is having some emergency bike tools and a bag to carry them on the bike. More important than that even is practicing how to use those tools. So if you have a flat tire, if you have some brake cable break, you need to know how to fix it. And a really important thing is wear you and your child's bike helmets correctly. You can see that the helmet needs to fit just above your eyebrows, and it needs to fit tightly. And most modern helmets are easy to adjust, so this is an easy thing. An important thing that you need to know is that you need to replace your helmet anytime there's a crash, or even if you drop the helmet on the ground. They do have a fairly fixed life also, so that they're not something that lasts forever. You also benefit if you get a newer helmet, then they're much cooler and much more comfortable because they continue to improve as they go. And remember that helmets can't be left in hot cars. They can die in just a little while if they're left in a hot car. So, can you commute by bike if you have a child? Don't you need a car seat? No, you can take your children along with you as soon as they're old enough to hold up their heads. And that's at about a year of age. You can drop them off at school or daycare on your way to work just like you do with a car. And the important thing is that there are specific ways to carry things. This first picture shows a bike trailer. That's a good way to carry a real small child, but there are other ways to do it too. You can see that children don't even have to be awake to be on a bike commute. They can be in special seats. These are readily available now. They used to be very specialized things that you could only find from European sources, but they're very common now. Remember that you need to have bright clothes so you can be seen, and you see the orange flag flying over the trailer there. That's something that is also a help to be seen during the course of commuting, especially during the dark hours in the winter and spring. You need to have lights, and you need to have something that can easily be seen. And you may even realize that there are newer bikes that are very specialized that carry kids. Most of these are adapted from carrying goods, and they're used in cities around the world where they can make deliveries and do other things like that. There are even some more elaborate electric bikes right now that have a motor that looks almost like a car. Now, when your kids are a little older, you can have them help with the propulsion. Tag-alongs like the one on the right are one-wheel bikes that attach to the back of an adult bike. And then when the kids are even older yet, they can have a pull-along bar, which helps to bring them up to the same speed as the adults. That works pretty well when you have a child who's able to ride pretty much on their own, but just can't ride quite as quickly as you can. Whatever you do, make sure you practice riding with your kids because the bike's handled differently when they're loaded. Kids need to practice riding in the group on the road too, because they'll usually be with you or even with two people. So you also need to make sure that with any trailer or anything, bikes pulled behind you, that you be aware of the extra space that you need to make turns and to avoid obstacles. We don't like people riding on the sidewalk on their bikes, no matter how old they are, but there's a legitimate reason for kids on the sidewalk until they're comfortable riding next to cars. It's really better for them to ride on the street and you to ride between them and the traffic until they get comfortable. If you ride single file, get the kids in front and behind of adults, if at all possible. Now, finding the quiet routes to work or school is really important. That's takes some research. Remember, the best route may not be the shortest. Low stress is more fun and safer. Finding this is kind of an art rather than a science. They may change depending on the time of day or the weather or the season. One important tip to think about is the way the roads that you choose intersect with other roads. And so if we can see, we know if there's a busy intersection like the one shown here, these are dangerous areas for cars and bikes to mix. It's important to try to avoid these if at all possible. And it's partly because of the confusion of a lot of traffic and partly because of the difficulties in making turns across intersections. Intersections are a dangerous spot, so try to avoid them if you can. Local identified bikeways are really good routes for bike commuting. This one shows the bikeway in Dover. Dover is a really good commuting town. It's relatively flat. It's not too large. It has only one set of railroad tracks. And it's a place that has been usually chosen by the cyclists and the city traffic planning features. So local governments and planning groups sometimes publish special bike maps. And these include features that you may find hard to find on regular maps. And a little shout out for paper maps. Paper maps often show these better than on electronic maps. Some bike routes are marked for bicycling. Lets also cars know that there are bikes on the road, which is good. Other routes are separated, like the Jack Markell Trail that's shown on the right there. Sometimes trails are even allow horses, so it's an interesting combination. Low-stress bikeways have been identified as having fewer difficulties than other routes, and they're generally more fun to ride and require less skill to keep up with the traffic and avoid. So lots of groups are working with DelDOT and cities to connect up trails for good cycling, so the trails just don't start and end. Delaware Greenways and WILMAPCO are two in our area, and they're working on a convenient and coherent plan to have bike trails connect with places people want to go, and also that they don't just go from point A to point B and stop. So that's an important feature that you can check to look for the best commuting routes. I did find when I commuted that one of the best routes I had was through a cemetery, believe it or not. To say the local governments and planning agencies are, creating comprehensive bike plans with established routes. You can check with them, and then they can also use your assistance as you learn good places to ride and ways to commute. Interact with them and tell them things that that you have found that would be pretty good. So that's an important feature. We always do better when we all know where the things are. This is actually a group of children headed to school on a ride to school day in my neighborhood in Newark. Okay, when you're on the road on your bike, in the eyes of the law, you're considered a vehicle. So you need to behave like one. Cyclists have the same rights and responsibilities on most roads in most countries, but with those rights are responsibilities. You got to obey traffic laws and stop at junctions and traffic lights when needed, use lights when required, and behave as you would expect others to behave on the road, because it's not your own safety alone, but you're an example for other people. So we want to be sure that bicyclists get the respect that they need, but they have to earn that by sharing the road appropriately. Remember hand signals. They're probably the most important thing to tell drivers what you're doing. Okay? And the hand signals were actually in the driver's manual when you learned how to drive a car. You've probably forgotten them, but they're still there. And it's important to let people know anything you can promote harmony on the road and move in the right direction. And if you can use marked bike lanes wherever possible, as we said earlier, you want to avoid riding on sidewalks anywhere, because typically you're interfering with pedestrians there. But use bike lanes if you can, and especially in intersections where cars are turning, because that indicates to cars that the bike has the right of way through the bike lane and where they're headed. You can see well in this picture. Sometimes cars don't know where they're going. So it's important to remember that Delaware's rules of the road insist that you control your bike and be aware of motor traffic. Try to be seen all the time. Okay? Headlights, white headlights, rear reflectors. The new lights that flash are much better than lights that are constant, because they really attract attention. And an important thing is being predictable. It means riding your bike in a normal way that somebody would find acceptable for a vehicle is important. You don't ride the wrong direction. You don't miss stoplights. You don't do things that people would not expect a vehicle to do. So if you can do that, you can ride on to school and work and home without too much trouble. And we'll be happy to help with that. We've got some other resources at the BikeNewark webpage, and we cooperate with all these other organizations making bike commuting better for everybody. We join a transportation advocacy group of all the Bike Wilmington or Rideshare or Bike Delaware, and help everybody get started to reduce emissions and reduce crowding on our roads. One of the things that we really enjoy is being able to share our expertise with people through these seminars. We understand that although not everybody can participate live, they're recorded so that you can go back and tell people, hey, there was a good seminar that you can check out on the Rideshare Delaware website. So for more information, we'll be happy to help you at BikeNewark.org. And we have some more ideas about doing things with children that I've created that didn't fit the time here that we're posting at the BikeNewark website. So be sure to take a look. And our folks at Rideshare Delaware, Delaware Clean Commute have some other things to tell you about that they've been doing. Thanks very much for having me.
Thank you, Bob. Great information as always. I don't see any questions, but if there's any questions, please go ahead and put them in the chat and we'll go through them. I think you provided some great tips for riding with the children, and also some really great options. I was familiar with some of them, but some of the pictures were new to me. And one thing I took away that I never even thought of, Bob, that you had mentioned was do not leave your helmet in a hot car. I never thought that. So that's my takeaway tip for the day. So thank you for sharing that information with us. And we are going to continue. I will keep checking the chat box for questions. Since we're talking about biking, when you register for Rideshare Delaware and you're looking at all your clean commute options for getting to work or to school, we do have in here, you could see a biking example where we can actually help map out a safe bike route for you as well. So this goes right along with what Bob was mentioning about finding yourself a safe route if you will be biking. So you can utilize Rideshare Delaware to also assist with finding that safe bike route along with all the other clean commute options as well. We also want to remind you how to get registered with Rideshare if you are not already. You can either visit our website or you could download the Rideshare Delaware app, which is available on iPhones and Androids. And as we transition to our new name, we'll be updating all this information as well. And also, don't forget, if you are clean commuting, please go into your profile or make sure you register, because you can be utilizing one of our benefits, Rideshare Rewards, where you just have to clean commute. You record whichever clean commute mode you're doing, let's just say biking. You can earn up to 200 points a day, and then what you do with these points is you accumulate them, and we have over 500 different rewards that you can choose from, and they range from dining options, activities, shopping, online services, and we also have our monthly raffle. It's 500 points to enter the monthly raffle, and for the month of September, we are giving away 2 $50 gift cards. And the great thing is we have a selection that you can actually choose which gift card you would like if you win that raffle. So make sure you're recording those clean commutes, and if you're not registered, please go to our website or download the app to get started. And just to let you know, we do have how-to videos on our website as well that can show you how to register, complete your profile, record your clean commutes, and also look for your matches for carpooling. And with that, I want to say thank you for everyone who is joining us today. I want to give a big thank you to Bob and BikeNewark again. You're always welcome, and we love the information that you do provide. All of our information's here. Please reach out if you have any questions, and please, if you do have any biking questions, you can also reach out to Bob as well through BikeNewark. Happy Friday, have a wonderful weekend, and be safe out there. Thank you, everyone.